The most dangerous moment in any conversation is not the silence, it is not the shout, it is the echo that comes back wrong. When you stand at the edge of a canyon and yell hello, you expect the laws of physics to return a fainter, distant version of your own voice. You expect decay. You expect entropy. But if you yell hello and the canyon shouts back I see you, louder than you spoke, with a different accent, you are no longer dealing with acoustics. You are dealing with intelligence. You have moved from a monologue to a dialogue, and you did not ask for permission to start it. You have moved from a monologue to a dialogue, and you did not ask for permission to start it. Before I reveal the specific classified telemetry regarding the interaction between the Goldstone solar system radar and the object designated 3I Atlas, an interaction that technically constitutes a declaration of active technological capability by an extraterrestrial asset, I need to ask you for a favor. I need to calibrate our local sensor grid. In the comments below, state your city and tell me, have you noticed any strange feedback on your electronics recently? A buzz in your speakers that mimics speech, a pattern of interference on your television or radio that feels rhythmic, almost like a code. We are tracking these electromagnetic artifacts because they are the terrestrial splash of the event I am about to describe. Do that now, because what I am about to share may change the way you see humanity's place in the universe. We have been told that 3I Atlas is a passive object. Even as the anomalies piled up, the light curves, the orbital shifts, the internal structures, the official line remained that it was a dead body, perhaps with some unusual, volatile outgassing. We were told that it was drifting, deaf and blind to our presence. We assumed that we could poke it, prod it, and bounce radar waves off it without consequence. We assumed we were the scientists in the lab, and it was the specimen on the slide. But 72 hours ago, the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, JPL, decided to conduct a high-power active radar scan using the Goldstone Deep Space Communications Complex in the Mojave Desert. They fired a 500 kilowatt beam of X-band radio energy at the precise coordinates of 3I Atlas. The goal was simple: to get a high-resolution Doppler image of the surface to see the shape of the rock through the dust cloud. They sent the ping. It traveled at the speed of light, crossed the millions of miles of vacuum, hit the object, and bounced back. But the signal that returned to the dish at Goldstone was not a bounce. It was a reply. Let me explain the physics of radar astronomy so you understand the absolute impossibility of what happened. When you bounce radar off a comet or an asteroid, the return signal, the echo, is incredibly weak. It is governed by the inverse fourth power law. The energy drops off dramatically as it travels out, scatters off the rough surface, and travels back. The echo is a whisper. It is fuzzy. It is just a ghost of the original pulse. The signal that came back from 3I Atlas was amplified. The return flux was 3 orders of magnitude higher than the energy that hit the object. Think about that. If you shine a flashlight at a rock, the rock does not shine back brighter than the flashlight. It reflects a tiny fraction of the light. For the return signal to be stronger than the incident signal, the object must have added energy to the wave. It received our pulse, processed it, amplified it, and fired it back at us with perfect aim. This is known as active retro-directivity. It is the hallmark of a military-grade electronic warfare system. It is designed to say, I know you are painting me with radar, I know exactly where you are, and here is my answer. But the amplification is not the most disturbing part. The disturbing part is the modulation. The Goldstone radar sends a very specific, pure tone. It is a clean wave. The return signal from 3I Atlas was dirty. It was modulated with a series of nanosecond-scale phase shifts. When the engineers at JPL looked at the waveform, they realized the phase shifts were not random noise. They were structured. The object had embedded data inside our own radar echo. It used our own voice to speak back to us. This is a level of technological sophistication that borders on magic. To catch a radio wave moving at the speed of light, modify it, amplify it, and return it in real time requires a processing speed that exceeds our fastest supercomputers. And what was the reaction of the object itself? This is the data point that has caused the frantic closed-door meetings at NASA. At the exact moment the radar pulse hit 3I Atlas, the object twitched. The astrometric tracking cameras monitoring the object saw a sudden, sharp change in its angular velocity. It did not drift, it did not tumble, it snapped to a new orientation. It rotated 38 degrees in less than a second, and it locked its primary axis directly onto the Goldstone facility. Imagine you are walking in a dark forest. You think you see a rock. You shine your flashlight on it, and the rock instantly snaps its head around to look directly into your eyes. That is what just happened to the human race. We poked the bear, and the bear woke up. The reaction was visceral, it was physical, and it was not very hospitable. By locking onto Goldstone, 3i Atlas demonstrated that it can trace a transmission back to its source on a rotating planet. It calculated the light travel time, the rotation of the Earth, and the atmospheric refraction, and it pinpointed the Mojave Desert. This is a targeting solution. We are no longer just observing a trajectory. We are staring down the barrel of a gun. The silence from the agencies is deafening. Usually, when we get a radar image of a comet, NASA releases it immediately. Look at the peanut shape. Look at the crater. There has been zero release of the Goldstone data. No images, no press conference. Why? Because the Doppler image did not show a rock. When you amplify a return signal, you get an incredibly crisp image. The noise is gone. My sources tell me that the radar image shows a structure that is geometrically perfect. Sharp edges, flat planes, a hull that looks less like geology and more like architecture. And sitting on the surface of that hull, pointed right at Earth, is a dish. The reaction confirms the Sentinel hypothesis. The object was likely in a passive scan mode. It was listening. It was watching, but it was maintaining radio silence to avoid detection or to complete its covert assessment. But when we hit it with active radar, we crossed a line. Active radar is aggressive. It is high energy. It can be interpreted as an attack, or at least a rude intrusion. The object dropped its camouflage. It engaged its active systems. It said, "You want to see me? Fine. Look." And in that moment of looking, we realized how outmatched we are. The amplified return implies that the object has access to a power source that can discharge gigawatts of RF energy in a millisecond. If it wanted to, it could have fried the receiver at Goldstone. It could have burned out the electronics of every satellite in the line of sight. It showed restraint, but it also showed capability. You know, there is something darkly humorous about this situation. We have spent decades sending radio signals into space, hoping that someone out there would hear us and respond. And now that someone has responded, we are terrified. It is like spending years trying to get someone's attention at a party, and when they finally turn around and look at you, you realize you have no idea what to say. Hi, nice weather we are having. Do you come here often? Except in this case, here is the solar system, and the weather is a 500 kilowatt radar beam to the face. I want to discuss the data packet hidden in the echo. Cryptographers are currently working on the phase-shifted modulation. It is a dense fractal code, but early analysis suggests it is a mirror. The object recorded our radar pulse, stripped it down to its mathematical fundamentals, and sent back a corrected version. It corrected the errors in our signal. Our radar beam has slight imperfections due to the atmosphere and the limitations of our transmitters. The return signal was mathematically perfect. It was a flex. It was the alien equivalent of a teacher correcting a student's grammar in red ink. Your signal is noisy. Here is how it should look. This implies a level of condescension, or perhaps a tutorial. Are they mocking us, or are they teaching us? The reaction to the radar signal changes the rules of engagement. Until now, we could pretend we were invisible observers. We could pretend that our studies were non-invasive. But active radar is a touch. We touched it. And now it knows we are here. It knows we have the technology to reach out and touch the stars. This might be the trigger for the next phase of its mission. If the mission was monitor primitive species, the status has just changed to monitor active technological species. Does that change the protocol? Does it trigger a containment? Does it trigger a response? I mentioned the heaviness and the electronic feedback earlier. When an object amplifies a radar signal, it creates a massive splash of electromagnetic radiation. The lobe of that signal washes over the Earth. We are bathing in the backwash of the alien transmitter. This can affect our ionosphere, it can affect our weather, and it can affect us. The human nervous system is bioelectric. We are sensitive to fields. The anxiety you feel, the static in the air, this is the sensation of standing in front of a microwave oven with the door open. We are in the beam. I urge the scientific community to demand the release of the Goldstone data. We cannot prepare for what comes next if we are blind. If 3i Atlas reacted to a radar ping, what would it do when we launch a probe? What will it do when we turn on the next generation of high-power lasers? We are walking through a minefield blindfolded. The twitch, that 38-degree rotation, was a warning shot. It was a physical demonstration of agility. A rock cannot twitch. A rock has inertia. To rotate a mass of that size that quickly requires inertial dampening or massive thrusters. We saw no thrusters. This means they are manipulating the moment of inertia of the object. They are playing with the mass properties itself. We are dealing with physics that we only theorize about in textbooks, and they are using it to stare at us. The reaction is the final nail in the coffin of the natural object theory. No comet amplifies radar, no asteroid corrects signal errors, no debris field snaps to a target lock. We have found the artifact, and we have turned it on. I was hoping you could think about the psychological impact of this. For all of human history, we have looked at the sky and seen a mirror of our own myths. We saw gods, monsters, heroes, but it was all projection. The sky was silent. Now the sky has spoken back. And it did not speak with poetry. It spoke with math. It spoke with energy. It spoke with a growl. The reaction to the radar signal is the beginning of the dialogue. But a dialogue with a superior intelligence is not a conversation. It is an interrogation. We are being questioned. Who are you? What is your capability? Why did you ping me? And our answer was silence. We hid it, and then we hid. We went dark. The agencies pulled the plug on the public feeds. That is the wrong answer. If you poke a bear and then you hide, the bear does not go away. The bear starts hunting. We need to answer. We need to send a signal that is not a weapon, not a scan, but a greeting. We need to say, we see you. We acknowledge your technology. We come in peace. But we do not have a protocol for this. We do not have an ambassador for 3i Atlas. We just have frightened scientists and silent generals. The reaction is escalating. New reports from amateur radio astronomers suggest that the object is now pulsing periodically on the Goldstone frequency. It is pinging us. It is mapping us. It is doing exactly what we did to it, but with a resolution we cannot comprehend. It is counting our heartbeats. It is counting our keystrokes. The radar signal was the catalyst. It precipitated the solution. The cloudy liquid of the unknown has crystallized into a sharp, hard fact. We are not alone, and we are not in charge. So tonight, when you look at the sky, remember that it is not a one-way mirror anymore. The glass is clear, and the thing on the other side is pressing its face against it. It reacted. What will we do when it decides to act? Follow this channel. We will be tracking the pulses. We will be analyzing the modulation. We will not let the silence win. The universe has answered our call. Be careful what you wish for. You know, there is a famous thought experiment in philosophy called the veil of ignorance. The idea is that if you do not know your position in society, you will design a fair system because you might end up anywhere in it. I think we are experiencing a cosmic version of this. We did not know our position in the galactic hierarchy. We assumed we were alone, or at least unobserved. And now we are discovering that we are not at the top. We are not even in the middle. We are at the bottom, looking up at something so far beyond us that we cannot even comprehend it. And that is a humbling, terrifying realization. Let me explain the inverse fourth power law in more detail, because this is crucial to understanding why the amplified return is so impossible. When you send a radar signal into space, the energy spreads out as it travels. It follows the inverse square law, double the distance, and the energy is spread over 4 times the area. So if you send a signal to an object 1 million kilometers away, by the time it gets there, the energy is spread over a sphere with a radius of 1 million kilometers. The object intercepts a tiny fraction of that energy, and then it reflects an even tinier fraction back. That reflected signal has to travel another million kilometers back to Earth, spreading out again according to the inverse square law. So the total energy loss follows the inverse fourth power law, double the distance, and the return signal is 16 times weaker. This is why radar astronomy is so difficult. The return signals are incredibly faint. We are talking about signals that are billions of times weaker than the original transmission. And yet, the signal from 3I Atlas was stronger than the original transmission. 3 orders of magnitude stronger, 1,000 times stronger. That is not just unusual. That is physically impossible for a passive object. The only way to get a stronger return signal is to add energy. The object had to receive our signal, amplify it, and transmit it back. That requires a power source. That requires electronics. That requires intelligence. And it requires a level of technology that is far beyond anything we have. The phase shifts in the return signal are equally fascinating and terrifying. A phase shift is a change in the timing of a wave. Imagine a sine wave, a smooth oscillation. If you shift the phase, you are essentially moving the wave forward or backward in time. In communications, we use phase shifts to encode information. This is called phase shift keying, or PSK. By varying the phase of a carrier wave, you can encode digital data. It is one of the most efficient ways to transmit information over radio frequencies. The return signal from 3I Atlas contained phase shifts at the nanosecond scale. That is billionths of a second. To encode information at that speed requires incredibly precise timing. It requires atomic clocks. It requires technology that can manipulate electromagnetic waves with femtosecond precision. And the information itself, we are still decoding it. But the structure is clear. It is not random. It is not noise. It is a message. And it is a message that was embedded in our own signal and sent back to us. Think about the implications. 3I Atlas received our radar pulse, analyzed it, understood it, modified it, and returned it, all in the time it takes light to travel from the object to Earth and back. That is processing speed. That is orders of magnitude beyond our fastest computers. And it did it in real time. No delay, no hesitation, instant response. We are dealing with a level of computational power that is almost incomprehensible. The Doppler image that came back from Goldstone, the one that NASA is refusing to release, shows something that should not exist on a natural object. When you look at asteroids or comets up close, you see chaos. You see impact craters, irregular shapes, random surface features. Nature does not make straight lines. Nature does not make right angles. But the Doppler image of 3I Atlas shows both. There are linear features running along the surface. There are what appear to be seams, perfectly straight, dividing the object into sections. There are circular structures that look like ports or hatches. One researcher who saw the image described it as looking like a walnut that has been machined on a lathe. The outer shell has a natural, organic appearance, but underneath, it is all geometry. The most striking feature is what is being called the central void. The radar penetrated the surface and revealed a cavity inside the object. This cavity is roughly 50 meters across, based on the size estimates of the overall object. And here is what is impossible. The cavity is empty. When comets fragment, you see debris. You see chunks of ice and rock floating away. You see dust clouds. But this cavity is clean. It is like someone scooped out the interior and left a hollow shell, or like someone built a cargo bay. The walls of this cavity are smooth. Too smooth. They are reflecting radar in a way that suggests a polished surface, not the rough, porous texture you would expect from a comet nucleus. And there are structures inside, small protrusions, maybe a meter or two in size, arranged in what looks like a regular pattern around the inner walls. Some people are calling them docking ports. Others are calling them sensor arrays. But everyone agrees on one thing. They are artificial. And then there is the dish, the structure on the surface that is pointed directly at Earth. This is not a crater. This is not a natural depression. This is a parabolic reflector, a dish antenna, and it is aimed at us. The geometry is perfect. The curvature is mathematically precise. It is designed to focus electromagnetic radiation, either to receive signals or to transmit them. And right now, it is pointed at Earth. Specifically, it is pointed at the Goldstone facility in the Mojave Desert. This is not a coincidence. This is not a random orientation. This is deliberate. 3I Atlas knows where we are. It knows where the radar signal came from, and it has oriented itself to communicate with us, or to target us. The dish is approximately 20 meters in diameter, based on the radar imaging. That is large enough to transmit or receive signals across interstellar distances. And if it is transmitting, if it is sending a signal back to wherever it came from, then we are being reported on. We are being cataloged. We are being assessed. And whoever is on the receiving end of that transmission is learning everything about us. Our technology, our capabilities, our vulnerabilities. We poked the bear, and now the bear is calling for backup. The amplified return signal implies a power source that is beyond our current understanding. To amplify a radar signal by 3 orders of magnitude requires an enormous amount of energy. We are talking about gigawatts of power discharged in a fraction of a second. For comparison, a typical nuclear power plant generates about 1 gigawatt of power continuously. But that is continuous power, spread out over time. 3I Atlas discharged multiple gigawatts in a millisecond. That is a power density that is orders of magnitude higher than anything we can produce. Where is that energy coming from? What kind of power source can deliver that kind of output? Nuclear fission? Possibly, but you would need a reactor the size of a building. And we are talking about an object that is only a few hundred meters across. Nuclear fusion? Maybe, but we have not even figured out how to make fusion work on Earth, let alone in a compact mobile form. Antimatter. That would certainly provide enough energy, but storing antimatter is incredibly difficult. It annihilates instantly when it touches normal matter, or something else entirely, something we have not even theorized about yet. Some exotic energy source that taps into the fabric of space-time itself. Zero-point energy, vacuum energy, dark energy. These are concepts that exist in theoretical physics, but we have no idea how to harness them. And yet, 3I Atlas appears to be doing exactly that. Here is the thing that keeps me up at night. 3I Atlas showed restraint. It could have fried the Goldstone facility. It could have burned out every satellite in orbit. It could have sent a pulse of electromagnetic energy that would have knocked out power grids across the planet. It had the power. It had the capability. It had the targeting solution. But it did not. It sent back an amplified signal, yes, but it did not attack. It did not destroy. It responded. It communicated. It demonstrated capability without aggression. That is restraint. That is control. That is intelligence. And that terrifies me more than an attack would have, because it means 3I Atlas is not a weapon. It is not a mindless probe following pre-programmed instructions. It is thinking. It is making decisions. It is choosing how to respond. And right now, it has chosen to communicate rather than destroy. But what happens if we do something that changes its mind? What happens if we cross another line? What happens if we send another radar pulse? What happens if we launch a missile? What happens if we do something that it interprets as a threat? Will it continue to show restraint, or will it defend itself? And if it defends itself, what does that look like? What kind of weapons does it have? What kind of damage can it do? We do not know. And that uncertainty is the most frightening thing of all. After the Goldstone event, something strange started happening around the world. Amateur radio operators began reporting unusual interference on their equipment. Patterns of static that seemed to have structure, rhythmic pulses that did not match any known terrestrial source. Some described it as sounding like a heartbeat. Others said it sounded like Morse code, but in a language they did not recognize. And the interference was not random. It was strongest in certain locations. Locations that had a direct line of sight to 3I Atlas. People in the Mojave Desert, near Goldstone, reported the strongest interference. But it was also detected in Australia, South Africa, and Chile, all locations with major radio telescopes, all locations that have been observing 3I Atlas. It is as if the object is pinging back, not just at Goldstone, but at every facility that has been watching it. It is mapping our observation network. It is identifying every telescope, every radar, every antenna that has been pointed in its direction, and it is responding to each one individually. This is not passive reflection. This is active reconnaissance. 3I Atlas is studying us just as intensely as we have been studying it, and it is doing it with a level of precision and sophistication that is far beyond our capabilities. The amplified return signal did not just affect our electronics, it affected our atmosphere. The ionosphere, the layer of Earth's atmosphere that is ionized by solar radiation, showed unusual disturbances in the hours following the Goldstone event. Normally, the ionosphere is relatively stable. It fluctuates with solar activity, but those fluctuations are predictable and well understood. But after the radar ping, the ionosphere showed anomalous behavior. Regions of increased ionization appeared over the Mojave Desert, spreading outward in a pattern that matched the beam geometry of the return signal. This is significant because the ionosphere affects radio communications. It reflects radio waves, allowing them to travel over the horizon, but it can also absorb radio waves, blocking communications. The disturbances caused by 3I Atlas created temporary blackouts in certain radio frequencies. Communications were disrupted. GPS signals were degraded. It was brief, lasting only a few hours, but it was noticeable, and it was directly caused by the amplified return signal. This tells us something important. The energy output from 3I Atlas is not just theoretical, it is real. It is measurable, and it is affecting our planet. We are not just observing this object from a safe distance. We are interacting with it, and that interaction is having consequences. And then there are the reports from people who were near Goldstone during the event. Several technicians and scientists who were at the facility reported feeling strange sensations during and after the radar ping. Headaches, dizziness, a sense of pressure in their ears. Some described it as feeling like they were standing too close to a high-voltage power line. One person described it as feeling like my thoughts were being pulled in a specific direction. Now, these could be psychosomatic effects, the power of suggestion. People knew something unusual was happening, and their minds filled in the blanks. But there is another possibility. The human nervous system is bioelectric. Our neurons communicate using electrical signals, and those signals can be affected by external electromagnetic fields. This is well documented. It is why we have safety regulations around high-voltage power lines and radio transmitters. If the amplified return signal from 3I Atlas was strong enough to affect the ionosphere, it was certainly strong enough to affect human nervous systems. We are electromagnetic beings, living in an electromagnetic universe. And when something as powerful as 3I Atlas sends a signal, we feel it. Not just metaphorically, literally, in our bodies, in our brains. We are in the beam, and the beam is changing us. So what do we do now? How do we respond to this? We have several options, none of them good. Option 1, we do nothing. We stop pinging 3I Atlas. We stop observing it. We pretend it does not exist and hope it goes away. This is the safest option in the short term, but it is also the most cowardly, and it does not solve the problem. 3I Atlas is still out there. It is still watching us, and ignoring it will not make it go away. Option 2, we continue observing, but passively. We use optical telescopes. We collect light. We do not send any more active signals. This is a middle ground. It allows us to continue studying the object without provoking it further, but it also limits what we can learn. Passive observation can only tell us so much. Option 3, we send another signal, but this time not a radar ping, a message. A deliberate attempt at communication. This is the riskiest option. We do not know how 3I Atlas will respond. It might ignore us, it might respond positively, or it might interpret it as a threat and react accordingly. But it is also the most honest option. We have already revealed ourselves. We have already made contact. Pretending otherwise is futile. If we are going to have a dialogue, we need to be intentional about it. We need to craft a message that is clear, non-threatening, and demonstrates our intelligence. But who decides what that message says? Who speaks for humanity? The United Nations? NASA? The President of the United States? We do not have a protocol for this. We have never needed one before, and now we need one urgently. The SETI Institute, the organization dedicated to the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, has been notably quiet about the 3I Atlas situation. Publicly, they have said very little. A few bland statements about the importance of continued observation and the need for scientific rigor. But privately, sources tell me there is intense debate. Some SETI researchers are excited. This is what they have been waiting for their entire careers. Evidence of extraterrestrial technology, a chance to make contact. Others are terrified. They argue that we are not ready, that we do not understand what we are dealing with, that we should proceed with extreme caution. And a few are angry. They feel that the Goldstone radar ping was reckless, that it was done without proper consideration of the consequences, that we poked the bear without thinking about what would happen if the bear poked back. SETI has protocols for what to do if we detect an extraterrestrial signal, but those protocols assume we are the receivers, not the senders. They assume we have time to analyze, to debate, to decide how to respond. But 3i Atlas has flipped the script. We sent the signal, and it responded immediately. We do not have time to debate. We are already in the conversation, and we are making it up as we go along. The military, of course, sees this very differently than the scientists. To the military, 3i Atlas is not a scientific curiosity. It is a potential threat, and threats must be assessed, monitored, and if necessary, neutralized. There are reports, unconfirmed but credible, that the Pentagon has been running simulations, war games, scenarios for what to do if 3i Atlas turns hostile. Can we shoot it down? Can we deflect it? Can we disable it? The answer, apparently, is no. We do not have the capability. 3i Atlas is too far away, it is moving too fast, and it has demonstrated technological capabilities that are far beyond our own. If it wanted to attack us, we could not stop it. We could not defend ourselves. Our only option would be to hope that it shows the same restraint it has shown so far. And hope is not a strategy. This is a humbling realization for the military. For the first time in modern history, we are facing a potential adversary that we cannot defeat. We are not the apex predator anymore. We are the prey, and that is a very uncomfortable position to be in. The public response to the Goldstone event has been muted, largely because the public does not know about it. The data has been classified, the images have been withheld, the story has been buried. But information leaks, it always does, and slowly the story is getting out. On social media, on forums, on conspiracy theory websites, people are talking about 3i Atlas. They are sharing theories, speculating about what it is and what it wants. Some think it is a probe from an advanced civilization. Others think it is a weapon. A few think it is a hoax, a government psyop designed to distract us from something else. And a surprising number think it is a sign, a religious or spiritual event, the return of the gods, the beginning of the end times. The diversity of responses is fascinating. It shows how differently people process the unknown. Some reach for science, others reach for faith, some reach for fear, others reach for hope, but everyone is reaching for something. Because the idea that we are not alone, that we are being watched, that we are being judged is too big to ignore. It forces us to confront questions we have been avoiding. Who are we? What is our purpose? What is our place in the universe? And those are not easy questions to answer. Let me step back for a moment and talk about the philosophical implications of what has happened. For thousands of years, humans have wondered if we are alone in the universe. It is one of the oldest and most profound questions we have ever asked. And now we have an answer. We are not alone. There is something out there, something intelligent, something technological, something that is watching us and responding to us, that changes everything. It changes our understanding of our place in the cosmos. We are not the center of the universe. We are not the pinnacle of creation. We are one species among many. It changes our understanding of intelligence. We have always assumed that human intelligence is the highest form of intelligence. But 3i Atlas demonstrates that there are forms of intelligence far beyond our own. It changes our understanding of technology. We have always assumed that our technology is advanced, that we are on the cutting edge of what is possible. But 3i Atlas shows us that we are barely scratching the surface, and it changes our understanding of ourselves. Who are we? Really, are we the masters of our own destiny? Or are we being guided, shaped, manipulated by forces we do not understand? These are not abstract philosophical questions anymore. They are concrete, practical questions that we need to answer. Because the answers will determine how we respond to 3i Atlas. And how we respond will determine our future. So what happens next? Where do we go from here? 3i Atlas is still out there. It is still watching. It is still responding. And it is heading toward Jupiter. On March 17, 2026, it will make its closest approach to the Jovian system. That is less than 2 months away. 2 months until we find out what happens when 3i Atlas reaches its destination. Will it deploy something? Will it release a probe? Will it enter orbit around one of Jupiter's moons? Or will it simply pass by and continue on its way, leaving us with more questions than answers? We do not know, but we will be watching. Every telescope on Earth will be pointed at Jupiter on that date, and we will see what 3i Atlas does. We will see what it reveals. We will see what it wants. and then we will have to decide how to respond. Because this is not over. This is just the beginning. The radar ping was the first word in a conversation that is just starting, and we do not know where that conversation will lead, but we know one thing for certain. We are not alone. We have never been alone, and the universe is watching. The most dangerous moment in any conversation is not the silence. It is the echo that comes back wrong. We sent a signal to 3i Atlas, and it sent a signal back, louder, stronger, modified. It said, "I see you." And now we have to decide what to say next. Do we say hello? Do we say we come in peace? Do we say nothing at all? These are the questions that will define our generation. These are the decisions that will shape the future of humanity. Because we are no longer alone in the universe. We are part of a larger community, a cosmic conversation. And we have just spoken our first word. What will our second word be? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Tell me what you think we should say. Tell me what you think 3i Atlas wants. Because this is not just a scientific question. This is a human question. And we need every voice, every perspective, every idea. Subscribe to this channel. Follow the updates. Stay informed because the next few months will be the most important months in human history. 3i Atlas reacted to our radar signal, and now we have to react to its response. The conversation has begun, and there is no going back. The universe is watching, and it is waiting to see what we do next. Be careful what you wish for. We wanted to know if we are alone. Now we know, and the answer is terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. We are not alone, and the thing that is out there is far more advanced, far more powerful, and far more intelligent than we ever imagined. But it is also showing restraint. It is also communicating. It is also giving us a chance to prove ourselves, a chance to show that we are worthy of joining the cosmic community, a chance to become something more than we are. And that is a chance we cannot afford to waste. Thank you for watching, and remember, the universe is vast, the cosmos is ancient, and we are just beginning to understand our place in it. 3i Atlas is a messenger from that vast cosmos, and the message it carries may be the most important we have ever received. We owe it to ourselves to listen and to respond wisely. The echo came back wrong, but maybe that is exactly what we needed to hear.